Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the next Managed Print Services Association live stream series. We have an exciting panel here today. We have folks from all over the MPS market stream here, which is pretty exciting. And we're going to get into introductions in just a minute. But this is being recorded, so if you're watching this live, you can share the link after the live event is over. Just go out to our LinkedIn company page that you can see the link there on the screen. And the recording for today, as well as all the other recordings that we've had, are all available there. So check out the great content that we have on our LinkedIn page for the MPSA. And this might be your first time joining the Managed Print Services Association, but in case it is, we just wanted to give you a quick definition. We're a community of members across the managed print services industry where we provide education, networking opportunities, research, and best practices. And we try to work together to make the whole industry better. So that's why we're all here today with this panel. And we have other topics that we cover from managed print to production print. And we hope that you'll join us if you're not a member today. So if you'd like to know more information about becoming a member and what the benefits there are for being a member, go to yourmpsa.org. And we'll be glad to have you join us at the Managed Print Services Association. Well, what I want to do is I want to get out of the way because nobody wants to hear more slides about Managed Print Services Association, but more about the topic that we have today. The topic today is around Microsoft's Windows protected print mode that's just being announced about a year ago. And it's something that's, some people are looking at this as an opportunity. Some people are seeing it as a disruption. We want to kind of talk about, is it one or the other? Maybe both. And if you don't know what WPP stands for, that's another reason why you should be here, so that you can get an understanding of what Microsoft has done and how this affects customers, how this affects dealers, how this affects OEMs and software providers, and also it affects our analysts. And so why don't we go ahead and quickly do a roundtable, just introducing everybody. And Bob, if you don't mind to start off, just introducing yourself.
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. And first of all, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to participate and allowing me to sit in with such a distinguished group. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't say that I think this is one of the strong benefits the MPSA has, is to be able to kind of get access to a group of individuals, myself excluded, like this. I mean, these are some good minds and some good expertise. So congrats to you, Eric, for pulling that together. I'm Robert Palmer. I'm a research VP at IDC. For those of you who don't know IDC, we're a very large market research firm. We track technology segments all around the globe. I cover anything and everything related to print. I have primary responsibility for managed print services and next-gen document services, but I kind of anything that has anything to do with print, I cover it, and I've been doing it for about 30 years. So way too long, probably.
I'm very good. And Steve, why don't you go next for us?
Absolutely. Well, Eric and team and audience, it's great to be here with you. I lead our print security strategy and product management from consumer to the SMB pro space up into enterprise, and thrilled to be with you today. This is a great topic. And again, I echo what Bob says. Our focus is in ensuring that we can enable security across all of our customers and partners. And this is a huge topic that is very topical, not by any stretch is it not relevant today. So hopefully we can save some headaches out there. But it's great to be with you today. I've been with HP over 18 years.
All right, very good. And Nick?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Definitely excited to be here, both as a panelist and to even learn something with this very important topic. I'm Nick Hienton. I am the VP of Services with a company called imageOne. We are an MPS dealer of Xerox, HP, and Canon products, as well as document workflow automation services. And I've been with imageOne and in the industry for 15 years.
Okay, very good. And Nick's part of our insiders group for the Managed Print Services Association, and that's one of the benefits of being a member. especially being a certified member. We appreciate that your company has been certified and is an active participant in our insiders group. So it's really good to kind of rub elbows with other dealers, not just in the United States, but globally. So that's great. And Will, you're next in the hot seat.
Thanks, Eric. Terrific to be here. I'm very proud to be joining everybody on the panel and talking about this important subject for our industry. My name is Will Parker. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now, I think. I've worked for most of the OEM vendors across the board, including international experience with HP. And typically around digital imaging, process, workflow, and content management. But security has been a big part of that story right from the beginning since we started networking devices. Now they're on the edge. It's even more important than ever. So it's a great conversation, and I'm very pleased to be here. I'm with Datasec Solutions, an Australian developer and security and encryption specialist who works very closely with HP to develop software to bring modern productivity and security to the multifunction devices and give people a smart device experience, whatever device they're on.
All right, very good. Thanks. As you can tell, we have different time zones all over the place here, so we appreciate everybody being available. My name's Eric Crump, and I'm the president for the Managed Print Services Association. And my day job is working at Ringdale, the Follow Me Print company. So I work with our global customers and global dealers on Follow Me Solution. And again, it's just great that we have different folks within the print ecosystem, from OEMs from HP, dealer from imageOne here in the States, Bob from IDC, who's getting a broader view of this across customers, vendors, and OEMs, and then ISVs like Will and I work at. So it's pretty exciting to have us all together. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think what we wanted to first talk about is what is WPP, and we thought that Bob would do a great job to kind of give us an overview of what that looks like from a market perspective, and obviously we'll all chime in and add some more comments on that. But if you can go ahead and start us off there, Bob.
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I have the task of trying to take what is a fairly complicated issue with a lot of tentacles and boiling it down into something. But Microsoft introduced WPP in 2024 with a focus on improving print security, really by utilizing the new modern Windows print stack and combining that with MPSA certified printers, right? And so that's kind of the basis of it. It might sound simple enough, but the reality is that this is a significant shift in the Windows printing paradigm. In fact, I would argue it's the most dramatic we've seen to Windows printing in the last couple of decades, and maybe longer, right? And so there's many nuances to it, and I'm sure we'll go deeper into what those are. But the basic thing is that Microsoft's eliminating the need for purpose-built or discrete printer driver, right? They're moving to this standard-based approach for driverless printing, leveraging the IPP standard, which serves as this foundation for mobile compliant devices. And the reason they're doing this now is they want to eliminate all security risks associated with the Windows printing stack. So over the last couple of years and longer, but really in the last couple of years, there have been some pretty high-profile print-related vulnerabilities that have surfaced and been introduced to the market. Print Nightmare is one. The Stuxnet virus is another. Some of these are very high profile. It got a lot of attention, caused some pretty severe security breaches, and Microsoft really has no desire to be associated with those in any way, right? So if you read up on what Microsoft has to say about this, they claim that 9% of all Windows security related issues reported to the SRC are print stack related problems. So they have a reason to do this, right? That's a big number, and obviously that creates some significant risk for them. They're not, as I said, they're not interested in being associated with any, high-profile case that could somehow, they could somehow be culpable from a security breach standpoint. So, that's sort of what's behind this. I think it's also well aligned with the industry's push towards, pushing towards a zero trust model for everything, right? But enabling print with things like driverless printing, but other things like per user rendering and encryption and the ability to kind of security out to the edge, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Right? And what was the last thing? Oh, I'm sorry, timeline, right? So that's the most important thing, I think, because while Microsoft's talking about this like a phased approach to WPP, the reality is that it's already out there. It's already part of Windows 11, and it can be turned on and enabled today. They're working on a timeline that says they're going to make this a default setting for Windows by 2027. But the reality is that it's already there. You can turn it on today, and doing so will cause some implications. And it's important to understand that, if you do it, or if your customers do it, you need to know how to prepare for it. So that's really, I think, what the discussion's about.
Yeah, and Eric, I just, from a manufacturer's perspective, I'd like to share that this is really, I want to impress upon everyone that this is representing one of the largest changes to the Windows print system in over 2 decades. So this is not just an upgrade, right? It's not just, this changes the inherent infrastructure and methodology of printing. And it's really, really important. And it specifically with IPP, it's based, the reason IPP has been selected as the secure alternative is that IPP is based on well-known secure protocols. It's supported by all common operations expected for printing functions. It's driverless printing that reduces the code complexity and enables client-side rendering. It's part of the Windows system and works with MOPRIA certified printers since 2012 for print and scan. And every other major operating system developer has already implemented IPP, including Apple, Google, Linux, and others. So it's a great framework to do this. One key point, though, is while Microsoft will articulate a date on when it needs, people need to transition, it's going to take a bit longer. Right now, the current Windows 11 install base is 53%. So you've got 46%, 47% that are still, that are going to take longer to transition. So this poses some interesting dynamics in the market.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I'm sure that 53% is splintered up. So it's not like whole companies with everybody running 11, right? It's going to be maybe if it's a global company, in this country, they're running this, in that country, they're running that, or even locally in North America, then maybe at different locations there you have different things going. So it's there's a lot of things to discover as we go through that. And actually, we should have a bingo card for all the different acronyms and everything that we're going to be using today. There's a lot of things if you're not familiar with like IPP and WPP and MOPRIA and some things like that. That's going to be important to know what those are, because it's as you're talking to your customers internally or externally, even as an end user, you're going to have to be able to explain some of these changes. So let's go ahead and get into the next question. Is like, well, how ready are today's printers, dealers, and customers for WPP? I guess that's probably 3 questions, but does anybody want to help take a stab at kind of readiness from what your perspective?
I can take a stab at that, Eric.
Sorry,
okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I jumped in a little too soon there, but maybe before we talk about how ready, maybe we need to sort of talk about a little bit about what ready means,
right?
Because I didn't really dive too deep into that, and Steve, probably you have the best insight here, just in terms of, you're moving to this driverless model. So it means that printer manufacturers are no longer going to have their own discrete drivers for their printers, right? And so there are issues associated with that. Microsoft's introduced the PSA, the printer support app, in order to enable that support for some legacy devices that aren't MOPRIA compliant. But maybe talk a little bit, Steve, about what it means to be ready before we talk about how ready is the overall fleet, right? Or how ready are our customers?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would say that it's incumbent upon every manufacturer, of course. I think we're all working on it, ensuring that we have an appropriate level of PSA capability, so that this discrete driver transition to the PSA. I'm sure, I would hope every manufacturer is well underway, if not already there, with a version of the print support app. Also the connection to the ISVs, like Will's fine organization, Datasec. There's some uniquenesses there around how solutions connect with our devices. And, that all needs to be very clearly articulated. I think from a manufacturer and security perspective, which I can share, there are some real values to WPP and for enterprises and their users. Number one, they've got there's limited print configuration. You don't necessarily have to get with print servers and print spoolers and have all this. I mean, we have a customer, interestingly, that was had a malware attack in the print server, and it was going out and pinging individual printers to try and get command and control of those devices and then move laterally into the network. And this kind of a new infrastructure really streamlines that, makes that not a possibility, if you will. You've got module blocking, which is only Microsoft signed binaries required for IPP and are permitted. So there's limitations there, which is good. It's simplifying the system. We have per user rendering, and we won't get into all the techie stuff, but it's not a system like the print drivers are and print servers. Security mitigations for binaries by only using Microsoft binaries. The use of modern security mitigations and remediations can be used by developers. That's great for ISVs and the others. Point and print is another dynamic here. So restricted from installing non-Microsoft drivers really reduces that threat landscape, that attack surface. And then the final thing I just share is transport security. So it will show print traffic encryption status and encourage the use of encryption, which we know in a zero trust environment today, it's absolutely critical. And then we'll take it to, of course, quantum resistance as we look at the deprecation of encryption in the future. So just some key things from a manufacturer's perspective that this really offers for us and for users and customers.
Very good. And Nick, you wanna take a turn?
Yeah. So at least from a dealer perspective, working with our customers and several others, as far as the overall readiness, it gets to be kind of a mixed bag, where I'm seeing many of the dealers that I also interact with. It's kind of a target, like at the end of the road, like kind of waiting to take action as their customers begin to take action. I know something from our posture is really starting to test the PSAs for some of the feature-rich devices, because that's going to be the single biggest impact. As Steve just said, the reason for this is first and foremost security, but as an MPS dealer, our customers want those feature-rich products and not start to lose some of the things that they've grown to need and love. So making sure that all the products that we have can still deliver that, and that we can work with them on the conversion for when they are ready to switch over to WPP, and how that looks in their environment, and being very much prepared. Because one of the concerns that myself and other dealers have, especially if a customer security organization decides, like, hey, we're just going to turn this on, at least last I checked, blows away all of your print queues. So your print environment is essentially gone. So if you are not prepared for that, you are in for a bit of a rude awakening. So being able to get in front of that, and I know a lot of what we've been doing at this stage, because we have not had any customers switch over yet, it's been communication and over communication to them, making them aware that this is a thing, letting them know when they are looking to take action to consult with us, to make sure that we can take the next steps forward in a way that both protects their business from a security standpoint, and their end users from the ability to do their job without any really downtimes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think too, one other thing to mention, I think in terms of adoption right now of this, I think it's really low. I mean, I think people, it's just not on, I mean, do you feel that, Nick and Will and Bob? Do you feel like,
No,
well,
I agree.
nobody's even thinking about this right now until it's slapping, right in their face.
Well, people are turning it on when they see the button.
Go ahead, Will.
People are turning it on when they see the button there and they're security conscious and they haven't done the research. They lose their proprietary drivers. One thing that I'd like to add is, think of it like the change that came through with USB. This is an attempt to create a plug and play for print. You don't need to go out and get a third-party driver and go through a whole lot of installs. Now, Windows simplified that because they allowed manufacturers to pull in the necessary drivers automatically when the user requested a printer. And the problem here was if somebody injected bad code or some sort of malware into those DLLs, you're probably aware of these binary files that the Windows local machine has to use in order to execute certain functions. It'd pull those in. And if they were malicious, they could run not just with the user's permissions, but with system permissions on the local PC. And this is how Print Nightmare and a lot of ransomware and other exploits happen. Furthermore, they were talking to other printers on the network, as Steve indicated. So the ability for printers to be used as an attack surface was huge. Now, since then, and even more today, we've also got to acknowledge that these devices are edge devices. They're all sitting and facing the internet more often than not. As we move our printing streams into the cloud, it's got to transition across the internet, which means these devices are exposed to the public internet, which makes them ideal attack surfaces. And I don't think we've even seen the start of the potential, especially leveraging AI and bots, probing for internet printing protocol, IPP systems, and so forth to discover weaknesses and to capitalize on vulnerabilities. So, Microsoft took this very seriously. They changed the print architecture to something more akin to USB. There's a universal print concept, universal print class driver should allow an industry standard protocol, internet printing protocol, to configure a device, to query a device and find out what its capabilities are and provide you everything that you need right there on the desktop without needing additional drivers and installing and needing privileges and permission escalations. It will be disruptive, but I don't think it's a industry disruption in the way we use that term very often. I think it's like USB. It's going to come with a lot of benefits, but it also is something that people have to get their heads around, because if they do turn it on unknowingly, they will lose maybe some capabilities on their printers that they love, like watermarks, like Bates numbering if they're using that, like auto headers and footers, overlays, saddle stitching, booklet making, imposition, some of these more advanced features that, of course, the OEMs have been right at the forefront of developing for decades, it will suddenly go away because, most people in an office situation who just want a left staple or a top corner staple and double siding are happy. That's a huge issue then for marketing and for anybody doing, more advanced work in the office.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the issue we're talking about when we talk about the potential disruption is, granted, there's a lot of, as Steve really laid out well, and you too, Will, there are a lot of benefits to moving to this architecture. We live in an environment where there's a lot of legacy devices that sit out there that are not MOPR compliant, that do not support this standard. Now, the OEMs will be developing PSAs to try and enable support, but the reality is that there's a good chunk of machines that are out there that not only will you lose the print drivers, you lose the print queues, and you can't get those print queues back. And if you disable WPP and try to go back, those things are kind of gone forever. And so if you're not planning for that, and if you're not, preparing for what that might mean to us as a customer, or more importantly, I think in this discussion is what it might mean for you as a service provider. Because who's going to get blamed first, right? They're not going to go to Microsoft. They're not going to say, hey, we turned this thing on. You told us to turn it on, and now our drivers are gone. And they're not going to go to HP or whoever it is, those printers they use. They're going to come to their MPS provider. So you need to be in a position to kind of be aware of this and know what's going on. And I think the legacy machines are kind of the bigger issues here in terms of the potential disruption.
From a this is what's really interesting about this is it's kind of a printing infrastructure update, if you will. I love the prospect that this will at least get perception in the minds of customers to upgrade and relook at their print infrastructure so that they can upgrade their firmware, so they're at a minimum, so their devices are secure in a secure posture before they go and do the WPP. It's a huge issue in the market, roughly around 40 to 50% of even enterprise fleets are running firmware that is so far out of date, they may even have security bulletins assessed against it. So this, just raising the level of awareness, the ocean, if you will, hopefully will build to make customers more secure. I think the unique opportunity here for managed partners is really a great opportunity to build consulting revenue, to work on migration, to look at security focused services that they feel comfortable providing along this this journey. So I think it all fits beautifully into, if they maybe have been toying with the idea of developing a security capability or service offering to increase revenue, this is a great topic to own.
And I think that some of our MPS providers that have diversified into selling PCs and other technology, it just fits in with Windows 11. You're already migrating, and this is just part of the talk track, of pulling it all together. Again, printing infrastructure, even though we think it's the best thing in the world to talk about in this panel, most customers obviously are not focused on it, right? And like Steve said, it's the perfect opportunity to kind of raise awareness, because everybody's affected. Everybody's affected. It's not negotiable really over the next few years. They have to make a change, and so, which is great. It's a way to talk, open the door, and find out what customers have in their install base, and create a plan together for them.
Just to add to that, Eric, and something that I think Nick would have something to say on too, is that there's a lot of parties involved in the conversation now, especially as people move to cloud. They typically have outsourced a lot of their internal IT departments. So what you have is you have security and IT infrastructure and services from a third party, and buying the printers from a managed print services provider, and they're running things in an office that's transacting across the internet. So they'd talk about security and tightening up security and doing a security review with their managed service provider. Recommendation might be, we need to improve the security, improve access and authentication authorization across the board. First of all, print is often the last thing that they think about there, because they may not even be aware historically that there's lots of things that you can do to really secure these devices. And the HP Wolf security platform is a perfect example of integrating and natively applying that at the device to make firmware robust. But in the absence of that, they are suddenly saying, protected print, we'll turn that on, make sure the clients have all got protected Windows print. And so flicking that switch as a third-party managed services provider can then completely disrupt all of the enterprise printing across the business instantly. The drivers are uninstalled, the printers stop working, and to roll it back is to turn this security function off and go through a complete reinstall. So there's opportunity here as well. And, Nick, I'd be interested in your view here on the number of stakeholders in the conversations here, because when you're providing the hardware and the software solutions for modern print in hybrid organizations that use the internet and use on-prem, there's a lot of parties that need to be involved in that conversation. The managed service provider, the managed print provider, the customer themselves, and it all depends, especially if they're switching vendors from one device to another. So, there's a real challenge there for the MPSA, I think, to play this role in helping with education and rollout.
100%, and that's seen as a big opportunity for us as well, being on the forefront of it. And one thing you also mentioned is that I don't think has been discussed yet, are the print adjacent software solutions and the opportunity that those present, such as Vision Print. Already being a decentralized printing architecture already protects those environments for what WPP aims to cover. So getting out in front of that affords dealers like mine the benefit of kind of having your cake and eat it too. We have a great solution to offer the customers. We take them off of on-prem, and they're also protected. And then they don't have to necessarily deal with any major change that's involved with something such as WPP. But then we also have other solutions that we're currently in the process of testing against as well, like internet back services, things like paper cut and the like, and how those are impacted by this change, and really digging into not only the print infrastructure, but how we need to assess and prepare for these software solutions to also not miss a beat.
That's right. Well, good. One of the things we started talking about, like gaps there, is something I didn't realize as I was preparing is, even fax drivers are affected, right? So you don't, print and scan drivers are affected with this change. So once you turn on WPP, it's not just print, even though it says Windows protected print, it also affects other things in our space around scanning and faxing. So it's, you're really going to have to do the due diligence to see what do you have installed, what do you have running on your Windows 11 infrastructure, and to make sure you're not turning off other core things to your business just by turning this on. I think, Bob, when we first talked about this a couple of months ago, you were talking about, you had heard about a real life global customer that, turned it on and just, they didn't know what happened to them.
Yeah, I mean, I have several new examples since this, but yeah, one of the first ones I heard was maybe 6 months ago or so. And again, this is a very large enterprise account, global account, where the IT person basically, saw that Windows protected print was there. Microsoft was more or less pushing it as the most secure way to print. As an IT security manager, he felt like, okay, well, if that's the case, we should turn it on. Turned it on and pushed it out, to everyone in the group, and suddenly lost all of his print records. Had to go through the process of trying to get back up and running again. As I mentioned, it's not an easy thing. So there's that side of it. We talked about legacy devices, and I think we have to be honest too about kind of where we are with print today. I had a conversation with a very large, very well recognized global account today. Everyone here in this group, everyone on this phone would know this account. Had well over 250,000 machines globally, and they're on their third generation of RFP, extending the existing contract and extending the existing fleet. So machines are already years old. They're going to extend it, and so we have to be careful and be honest about where we are with print. Well, I agree with Steve. This brings real opportunity to upgrade your fleet. Some companies are out there saying stuff does exactly what I need it to do, and I don't need to invest in new devices anymore. And they may have a lot of misconceptions there, but that's a prevalent mentality. And so we have to be prepared to deal with that and make sure that we're addressing all bases, not just recognizing it as an upgrade to the fleet, but also as an opportunity to make sure that what they have is supported, or that they have a pathway to support, right?
Yeah, I think, Steve, I don't know if you mentioned the statistic, but I had heard like 70-80% of printers in field are compatible. The other 20 to 30% aren't because they're not MOPRIA certified. So I guess it just
that's about right. I mean, the 2012 was the date MOPRIA, really launched, and I think that's the key. But I think that's the general range, in terms of percentage.
And like Bob was talking about,
that's the number that's consistent with our numbers as well. Although that's the number looking at at new devices being installed, not the fleet, not the IB.
Yeah,
right? It's not 70% of the installed base; it's 70% of the new devices going on.
Right. And my stat was 53% of Windows 11.
Yes.
That's around, isn't that right, Bob? That's around the install base of Windows 11.
That sounds right. And then if you look at the adoption of WPP within the install base of Windows 11, it's very, very small, right? There's very few people that are looking at it to enable it right now. So it's not like it's a huge problem now, but it's an opportunity to get out ahead of that, right?
Exactly.
And like you were talking about, in our world of managed print services, customers are looking at long-term contracts, and
yes,
and so the question is happening now about being ready for the future. Even though maybe a print vendor doesn't have their PSA running yet, or it's coming out soon, they're already trying to make the plan of what do we need to do, and so it's kind of like flying the plane and building at the same time. But it's they're again, especially with the sustainability focus of the manufacturers, with MPS contracts, being 5 to 7 to, I've heard 10 years, a kind of contract. So they're trying to think ahead on how is this going to work eventually. It may not have to work like that today, but what's the plan? And so that's something that we're seeing actively is that kind of discussion. So,
I wanted to just ask a quick question. Datasec and Will, their team is unbelievable, so talented in developing for authentication for zero trust environments. Can you share a little bit on, does this affect in any way the connections to cloud identity provisioning or anything around, that PSA, has an impact on that connection in any way, shape, or form? What are your thoughts on that? Or does it not at all?
In some respects, it shouldn't. And it's part of this redesigning the architecture for a cloud-enabled world where our productivity tools are in the cloud. One of the things to remember about printing that is really critical with cloud is you've got pretty large files that can be in lots of different formats that have got to go now across the internet to where the print spoolers and servers are. So there's, a stream of traffic in motion that could be attacked there, man-in-the-middle attacks and corruption of print data, etc. And then it's got to be downloaded to where the print endpoint is. And one of the things that is critical is knowing actually who is doing what, when, and where. And so this is the identity piece that you mentioned, Steve. Yeah. It's just going to be critical. In fact, we often talk in Datasec about the identity of everything. It's not just human actors, but AIs and service accounts. They all need a fingerprint, a biometric, if you like, which says that it's actually an identity that's signing in, not just someone who has knowledge of a password. Because if you only have a password and I know it, Steve, I can be you in the old model on the internet, on your local network. And so we have to make sure that there's an identity check for the print job, for the scan job, because we're not just transacting something with a local printer plugged into a parallel port, for those people who remember back that far, where you're sending data one way and it comes out in a piece of paper and you're happy. And there's one thesis that I love, that having seen the industry develop over so many years, there is this sense, I think, as we've talked about paperless office and reduction in print volumes and sustainability and FSC to make paper cool again or okay again, is that people are valuing print less. My thesis is that people value print more now than ever, because when they can't print at a time when they suddenly really need to. And so this is why frustrations with not having the driver for the print. I don't know, it's never happened in my house, but you must know people who say, I can't print today. I was printing yesterday. It's not printing today. What's going on? An IP address has changed or something. This sort of behavior of a device that we absolutely depend upon is something that as an industry and as the MPSA, we have to solve. One of the things that's good about Windows protected print and the PSAs, the print support applications for specific printers, is going to bring a new, very secure interface to that user experience that should be far and forget, plug and play, very much like that USB concept. You plug it in, the printer's there. And we're going to be doing that across internet-enabled networks. So this distributed modern workplace, a hybrid working workforce, should be able to work from their mobile, tablet, laptop, at home, at cafe, in the office, and just have access to their print. And a key aspect of that is identity, because who are you wherever you are? What is it you want to do? And what are the conditional access parameters that your IT admin has set around where you can print, what you can print, and where you can scan? And again, this is something, Nick, that our whole industry is going to have to be able to consult on, if not be, high level tech boffins about. We need to be able to talk very clearly and transparently with our customers about how they set security up with working with documents, because the documents are still the lifeblood of the company, right? You can't treat security, trivially when it comes to the lifeblood of the company, which is all your documents and information.
Well, and the interesting stat too is that paper is still the largest data breach vector. Interesting.
Right, for exfiltrating print, info.
Yep.
Which I think is kind of a good segue for a question that I have, Eric, for you. What's the implication of WPP for solutions like like Follow Me Print and Pull Print solutions, we're moving to this per user rendering model now. So, if you think about historically the way Pull Print has worked, right? You render a system, you print to the database, right? You print to a server, and that sits there until you badge in or you authenticated the device, and then it's just released at the device to a model now where we're submitting the job, but we're rendering at the device, right? So what does that mean for you guys, or for any full print solutions vendor, from an architecture perspective, dealing with issues like potential latency issues? Our customers going to be sitting there waiting around for pages to render and print a lot longer? Do you have to develop your own PSAs? Like, what's this mean for full print?
Well, there's a lot there, because different companies are doing different things. Like Nick was talking about, there's the rendering at the workstation and sending the print job directly to the printer and never going through the infrastructure. So that's one way to kind of get around it. But still, you're gonna still have to be able to. The PSA is going to tell you how to, from the finishing options, the paper trays that you want to use, that kind of thing. So. Plus, we have to work with different vendors, right? So it's not like just working with Steve and the HP team. It's going to be working with, HP, Canon, and all the other, like we do today. I mean, that's the thing is we're going to have to, as the PSAs are coming available from the companies, is look at how do we use those, because those are going to probably give the most optimal, output that customers are really looking for. And working through that. So it's a challenge, and it's early days, because again, not everybody has the solution from a printer vendor, and so we're trying to work through that as well. So it's I think we have a lot more time, and there's probably some very clever invention that's coming, because we have WPP, but we also have other things from Microsoft like Universal Print, which is not the same thing. And so there are different ways to print that we'll have to kind of balance through. So it's not simple.
Right.
And I still think too, from a security standpoint, if I put on a hacker hat, right, I'm going to be immediately looking for those areas of pressure point and weakness within this new infrastructure, and they're going to hammer on it. I mean, they're going to, and so or at least attempt to, let's say. And I think, we've got a lot of work to do to not only just transition, but to ensure that infrastructure we're transitioning to is as secure as possible in the environment. So that's just a whole nother dimension that we need to be thinking about here.
And I think the biggest thing that we need to be, because this is constantly changing, is it's just working together, to know exactly what the customer wants, because especially the bigger the customer is, the more of a mess it is, right? It's more business systems to work through, more bespoke or niche things that are running, and you need to take a lot of that into account. For smaller customers, it's probably a lot easier to get to the end, but larger customers, there's just a lot of and those larger customers, even government customers, are running older operating systems. So it's kind of mixed bag of operating systems, mixed infrastructure to be able to print from is something that everybody's going to be working through. And like we've said, it's big change for these companies isn't going to happen for a while. It's going to be, more than a year probably before people are really have a complete WPP environment, if that's needed.
I mean, I think it's going to take a year to plan it. I mean, at a minimum, don't you think, Bob? I mean, aren't they? I mean, they're thinking, okay, we need to phase this through department, or based on the kinds of printing that is being done. What is the risk appetite of security of that data flowing in that department and to department, and then kind of take it, in terms of a plan to implement this so it has the least amount of disruption for the infrastructure and the users, most importantly.
And there's still going to be...
And not expose themselves to risk by...
There's still going to be a conversation about what kind of print is critical to organizations. We worked with a company recently that had a marketing department that wanted to do the saddle stitch booklet making, and we were doing a Microsoft Universal Print implementation. And They just went with a different approach for the two machines that were in marketing. But for 90% of the other devices, or 90% of their devices, it was, corner stapling, side stapling, color, black and white, landscape, portrait, all of this sort of stuff, which is readily catered for. And with respect to the third-party providers of sophisticated print, that is as relevant as ever, because Microsoft really haven't changed what it is that they're offering. They've simply moved that print spooler capability from the Windows small business server that was sitting in reception in the cabinet into the cloud. For most businesses, it's simply a question of where you're streaming the data. It's not going to provide advanced rules and routing, departmental cost recovery and accounting, and being able to, tap on and have a student card charged, topping up a card. So I think that there's a lot of noise out there that I see around, universal print itself being a kind of a disruption there. But I think that there's room for people's print requirements to drive that customer conversation with the vendors, with the value-added service providers, and with MPS, because the managed print services understand the product range, they understand the software and solution range, the workflows of the customers. That consulting capability becomes absolutely critical in this day and age, because the network environment is more risky because of security, and it's more complex because of the partners involved, the managed service provider and internal IT, as well as what the end users actually want. And that's one of the things I've noticed is happening, is that there's a lot of decisions being made purely around security or purely around infrastructure, which don't take into account what the end user who needs print, who needs scan, really wants. And that's just another way of making print inconvenient for people in their day-to-day life. And we don't need that at all. We need people to find it to be productive, secure, and convenient.
Completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That's really well said, and I think really consistent with what Steve, you said, and Eric said too, right? I think some of the things I've heard out there in the market with WPP is that Microsoft is now going to own the print process, which I think couldn't be any further from the truth, right? I mean, I think this really necessitates a clear plan and a clear working process between all service providers, the OEMs, Microsoft, the software companies, and the customer, right? It becomes a kind of a whole new approach. So I think you guys really said it well.
All right. Well, I guess we're getting close to the end. Again, this is a great opportunity for folks to get engaged with their customers and with the OEMs. Again, we got to do this all together. And like Nick, you're kind of similar to the software providers, where you have to work with different vendors because you're selling different brands. And so that's probably from an MPS provider, that's a challenge, right? So you have to juggle a couple of things because different vendors are at different levels. What's that been like for you just recently, or looking to the future?
It hasn't been too bad. I mean, again, as we said earlier, the adoption of this is very, very low. We haven't had any customers who have moved forward. So as far as like the preparation and working with the vendors that we are most closely aligned with, has been really good. I mean, I can tell you a lot of our main OEMs are all over this. They're getting ahead of things. We have PSAs that we've been able to spin up into our lab environment to start testing, and to Will made a great point. Like, it's easy to have the doom and gloom of, I'm going to lose these features, but at the end of the day, what 99% of all the print that's done is going to be your standard black and white, your color, your duplex, maybe if you're getting crazy, a staple here or there. Those higher end devices, I mean, that's going to be a completely other can of, and that's really what we're focusing on too, is as we look at the really high end multifunction capabilities through like production is really where we're putting a lot of our efforts. But then but again, what we're really focused on now is with our software solutions vendors. So as we have begun doing a lot with the actual OEMs for the printers, now it's really seeing, all right, how are these other solutions going to come into play? And the Follow Me print was a great example. paper cut being one that we are actively really working on to see exactly how this looks. As I said earlier, a Bayesian print, that's a nice one too that we're using as an opportunity because it already provides the benefits that WPP is coming to enhance in their already serverless environment. And so, like I said, overall, I think it's been very good. Early on, there were a few that I was having some struggles really getting some of our contacts really get their head around it, get me some information. But as of, I would say, the last 6 to 8 weeks, it's very much front of mind from our vendors, and they've been very supportive.
Well, I think one of the things.
Okay.
Sorry, just a quick one. Just one thing that's important is, software like pool printing software that's doing the tracking. That Sally's doing all the printing with the finisher, right? You have all the statistics on who's doing what, and so by doing all that due diligence and getting the reporting that's already existing in your customers, you already know there's a lot of planning that's put in there, right? So for those features that may be missing at the beginning, you can do a whole lot more intelligent planning versus just thinking maybe this is a problem or maybe it's not a problem. And, we can just run a couple of reports and have a lot of good information. Even if it's not an account that you own, if they run some sort of software in house, you can just get reporting from them and keep going. So there's a lot of good stuff that's already out there that can help, a dealer make their job a lot easier. So.
Well, Nick, you gave me a great idea on really reinventing and disrupting the subtle staple and its role. It needs to be reinvented. It's so mundane, right?
Well, all right. Well, I guess what we want to do is give some final thoughts. Did anybody want to give a final thought on WPP and for the opportunity that it is for our channel?
I would just embrace it as channel partners, as managed print service providers. Embrace it, put a strategy together, quickly articulate how you're going to roll it out, and really be in front of your customers. And I think that is a really, they will greatly appreciate it. I'm sure you know that already. So I think that's a great first step.
And at its core for dealers, it is just one more opportunity to get in front of your customers and then potentially make or new customers who are concerned about this and aren't hearing enough from their own dealers. So with that, it's presenting a ton of opportunities. I know our reps are always wanting to get in front of their customers and new customers at any chance they can get.
Yep, you stole my thunder there, Nick. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, you really view this as an opportunity to get out in front of your existing clients. There's an opportunity to do a new assessment, right? Let us come in. What's the health of your existing fleet? What's the legacy devices look like? How many of them are MOPRIA compliant? Where do you stand? There's just real opportunities to do near-term engagement right now, even near-term revenue opportunities from this, right? Mm-hmm. And then, be proactive in standing out from the crowd because your competitors may not be talking about this. And, if you're looking at net new business, for sure.
It's another good opportunity for all of us to look at what our customers are doing with print and scan. Scan is more important than ever. And I have a mantra, and that's the paper is not the page. It's the page the customer cares about, the end user cares about. Is it digital? Is it analog? So then it's paper. But if it's paper, it's going to become digital when you scan it in. What we need are devices that are what I like to think of as the natural and necessary evolution from, a dumb printer to a multifunction printer to what I call a smart document exchange. This has to be part of the modern IT infrastructure supported with the print support applications, PSAs, using standardized protocols. So it just works. We've got to get there. And that's done with consulting, understanding the customer's pages, not just their paper usage. And so that's a great conversation that we have all the time.
Well, very good. Yeah. And I think the biggest thing is just like today, we're all together talking about this, right? So, you're not by yourself. So there are, experts that are around in our industry that if you don't know what you're doing or you need some help, or if you have a question, because we all have questions about what's going on in this space, there's got we have the MPSA as an association where you can talk to other members or just the vendors that you need to be working with. So don't be scared. We're all going through this at the same time, and some of us are more clever than others. So definitely reach out to those people and pay attention to what's going out there. And we'll make sure we're watching this space as an association and sharing as many references that we can to our members. So I want to say thanks again for everybody for joining us in the virtual world and also our virtual panel that we have here today. So I say thanks to Steve and Bob, Nick, and Will from coming from all over the world to be part of us today. So thanks again, and we'll see you on the next live stream event.